Welcome to Seat Time, everybody, the off-road show that brings you all the results, news, and online shenanigans that make being online a good time. We'd like to say thank you to Fly Racing for their support of Seat Time. Please go check them out at flyracing.com. Welcome to Seat Time, everybody. Brian Pierce here, your host, still, surprisingly, your host for 2015. Luckily enough, I haven't fired myself. I feel like one day I'm going to do a better job. I've got confidence that I can pull it off, and I'm just going to keep on plugging away. But to make sure that, as I feel like sometimes my chops are going to slip a little here and there, I brought Papa Pierce back into the studio. We did really good when we were having Jordan Bailey on and Dylan Green, and I figured, you know what, 2015, we need to make sure we keep that up. I've been really enjoying having a lot of more guests in. So to start things off for the new year, I brought the old man in.
Happy New Year.
And you were excited because Ian Blythe is on. And last time you were on, Ian Blythe was on as well, right after you got to meet him for the first time. Right. Even I think I had met him a handful of times before. So Seat Time, what is this? This is the beer drinking, bench racing show for anybody out there who might be an enthusiast of motorcycles or two-wheeled sports. You could even be an off-road enthusiast, and I'm pretty sure that if you are open to fun discussions, you're going to enjoy this show. But we are the online show for the off-road enthusiast, and for 2015, Seat Time is presented by Fly Racing. Fly Racing is obviously they have been our longest supporter. They found us when we were about 20 beers in, 4 videos done, and just a bunch of drunks on a couch, which things have kind of changed. One of us is sober. But after all of this, we've kind of come on. Our relationship's growing. It's getting that much more stronger. So now it's just Seat Time presented by Fly Racing. And obviously, there's going to be much more of that in the future, and our relationship's going to continue to grow, and hopefully, we're going to be able to do more for them as they continue to do more for us. So it's going to be a great 2015 with them being such a great sponsor. We do have some other contracts out there that are being signed for other sponsors for 2015, but of course, as we all know, nothing ever happens before it needs to. So one day we'll be able to announce all that. Of course, Stillwell Performance, huge supporters of Seat Time. The guys over at Fast Company with their flex bars. If you're not running any of those, go get your suspension done by Stillwell Performance. You can find them at stillwellperformance.com and get yourself some flex bars by Fast Company at fastco.com because they like confusing URLs just as much as we do. So, Dad, what have you been up to? Did you have a good Christmas? Did you have a good New Year?
This is my 4th time on the show, and I've never had a beer.
Well, see, that's the thing. You're the sober one on the show.
Oh, okay. So I bring dignity to what otherwise would be a vulgar brawl. Is that how that works?
So okay. Steven's allowed to have half as much as I have, because Steven has to drive home. And since you have to drive just as far, if not further, that's okay. But if I don't supply it, then I don't need to worry about it, kind of a thing, right? If you come with an IV in, who knows?
Yeah, but I'm getting ready for photography this year. We got, remember we got some cases for our...
for our Phantoms?
For our Phantoms, and we're getting our video act together, and Brian got another camera, and look forward to doing a lot more shooting this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I got a 7D on the way finally. Used body, but hey, we're going to have a good time doing that and playing with that.
Well, you've got a used body.
Hey, that's very true. It's been cut into quite a few times. But somebody else who has
you have no idea.
A used body is Mr. Ian Blythe. So last time we talked with you was right after you were doing some rally testing, which before that, you were coming back from an injury because of the fact that you had a bruised body when you were getting ready for the GNCCs. So, oh my gosh, what's been going on? Why aren't you at Dakar? That's my big question.
That is a good question. I won the free entry in at the Australasian Safari. I got 3rd down there, but I was the first of the Dakar Challenge guys. So I had a free entry all lined up, but it's kind of like a free entry with a $70,000 redemption fee because you still got to get a bike to South America that's ready to race, and you got to have a team supporting you. So I wasn't in the cars this year. Kind of a late start, but it's still in the grand scheme. I want to hit the car as soon as I can. Hopefully this coming year. If not, whenever it works out. But yeah, it's the goal to go still, but couldn't make it happen this year.
Yeah, I can only imagine with with my father and I doing the Baja Rally, and it's easy to say that I paid some money towards that, but it's even easier to say that my dad paid a shit ton of money towards that. So we can only imagine the amount of money that was put in from our side of that, like the 4, 5, 6 times more expensive it would be to do the Dakar. So yeah, that could be the logistical nightmare.
And it's something you literally have to start a year in advance to do,
Yeah,
if not
more.
18 months.
Yeah.
To pull all the bikes, the spares, the people, and get you ready. And you've done outstanding. I watched you ride. You're ready. It's just it takes 18 months to pull the rest of the team together.
Yeah. So Ian, not going to Dakar, but I imagine that you've kind of been watching how everything's been playing out down there. What are your thoughts on how we're seeing some guys, a lot of guys actually, especially with the salt flats, DNFing. If they're not DNFing, some of them are even quitting because of the fact that honestly they're not okay with some of the conditions that they're being put through.
I'm just so pumped for Toby Price and
Hell
Blythe
yeah.
Ponce. I'm pretty fan of both of those two, and I'm just following what they're doing, and I'm so stoked. So I'm sure the salt flats looked kind of ridiculous, but it's I guess that's Dakar. And I was talking to Dave Peckham with Rally Pan Am earlier, and he was like, man, I feel like right now I would be going through every electrical connection on your bike. So, it's, we want to be there, but it's kind of nice to just look and laugh at those guys.
Yeah,
for,
be like, I hope they don't
year.
put that in it next year. That would suck. So Toby Price getting a chance to do the rally. When we saw Kurt Caselli do that in 2013, everybody was super stoked for him to get that chance. He did a phenomenal job, and we're seeing a lot of the same characteristics I think we saw come out of Kurt Caselli as we are with Toby Price. He's really, I think, overperforming for some of the expectations that people had. With a lot of the rally navigation training that you had to do, how long do you think it took you to get to a point where you were comfortable going, your 90% speed before you started to not have confidence in yourself in your navigating skills? Because I'd imagine that's got to be one of the hardest things for Toby. So I'm kind of trying to relate it with maybe how long it took you to get comfortable doing that.
Yeah, man, it was tough, and I can't say that I'm like the master navigator even now. I've only done one rally, but by the end of the 7-day rally in Australia that I did, I was starting to get confident at going fast and navigating on the fly without having to disengage and let off from riding, just kind of doing it. And the whole thing, navigating when you're fresh, you just hop on the bike and go, is one thing. Navigating when you're dehydrated and you've done 500 Ks already and you're in the middle of the desert, your ears are ringing, it's a whole different thing. So really impressed with Toby Price not taking big time. He's just taking his time, and I mean, I know that he's faster than pretty much anybody there, but he's not pushing himself. He's just being real consistent and not getting lost and doing everything right. So I'm pumped to see that for sure.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Toby Price as well. 2012 Germany was the first time I got to meet that guy, and twice now I've randomly shown up at events, and Toby Price has been there, and it's like, holy crap. And I run up to the dude and I'm like, dude, what's going on? And we give each other a big bear hug. It's the weirdest thing because you'd think we wouldn't really. I find that he's a lot like Kurt Caselli in that way, and it's an interesting relation, to relate him like that. But honestly, he's so open to just anybody. He's just willing to talk, willing to give you advice, always smiling, always having a good time. And so, yeah, I love running into that guy randomly, just like I did Kurt Caselli, because they just treat you exactly the same way. So we've got some time left at the car. How do you kind of expect things to continue to play out for everybody out there?
I think Coma's probably got it under control. He's just, from the beginning, he's just been looking like he's not worried at all. So I'd have to say, I'd bet that he pulls it off, but I mean, Dakar is a crazy race, so you never know. Yes.
Yeah, and as we're starting to see with the salt flats and all the temperatures and things like that, I guess anything can happen.
And your audience does know it's on TV on NBC Sports.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, if we want to catch it out, you can watch it on NBC. Have you had a chance to catch any of that?
4:30 in the afternoon. Not yet. I've recorded it.
Recorded it? Yeah, I'm the same way. Everything's recorded. Everything's been pretty nuts right now. If If you've been a fan of Seat Time for a long time, you might recognize the website because it looks exactly the same, and it's been the same for a very, very long time. Well, one of my big tasks that I've been tasked with, not just by myself, but by Steven as well, he actually has a ruler, and he follows me around with it and kind of thwacks me with it, is to up the ante on the Seat Time website. So in the next couple of months, you'll be able to see that. It's kicking my butt. So unfortunately, that's what I've been paying attention to much more than Dakar and things like that. But I did see, Mr. Blythe, how much ass kicking you did this past weekend. We'll say ass kicking. For those first couple hours, you were having a good time getting some elbows and racing with some guys out there at the West Hare Scrambles. So you got the win. That's awesome to see that you're still on a roll. You know, you carried a lot of that momentum that you had after being in Australia at a rally race to a cross-country race, you know, over there in Arizona. So kind of take us through how you got prepared for this weekend, what's your 2015 looking like. Take us through all this fun stuff because we're just excited to know because you just kicked butt and it was awesome.
Well, thanks, man. It's actually, the roll started when I got a 252 stroke. Right just before Thanksgiving, I got a 252 stroke, a KTM 250 SX, and we took it to the Ozark 100 out there.
Yep.
And did that race where I finished second behind Stu Baylor. I actually beat Stu Baylor in a moto, which is like not many people get to beat Stu Baylor in motos. So
I'm only going to say that if he shows up without a bike and without gear.
He actually passed me like right before the finish, and then I passed him back around the outside on the grass track. So that was sweet.
Yeah.
Then I went down to Tecate for the Tecate Enduro, and I won that too, which was awesome. And then I kept the roll going and won at the Hare Scramble this past weekend.
Dude, that's fantastic. So you're the first guest we've had on, actually, that's done the Tecate Enduro. Tell us a little bit about that because, you know, Scott Bright was upset that he didn't go. I'm sorry. Scott Bright went. It was Rick Emerson, who I was racing with at the TSEC Enduro because it was the same weekend as that event. Yeah. And Rick was actually like, man, I wish I'd have gone. It looked awesome. So tell us a little bit about that event because, honestly, I don't know much about the terrain, and all that kinds of stuff.
That race was awesome, man. It was the tightest race in the West Coast I've ever done. Just super turny and technical. The whole thing, 100 miles of just like 15 miles an hour zigzagging through the bushes.
So 15 miles an hour because you were timekeeping, or 15 miles an hour because it was that tight and twisty?
No, it was that tight and twisty.
Nice.
You were just turning constantly.
Sounds like a lot like the race we did.
Sounds like a enduro down here in the south.
Yeah, that was the race that we did here in Gainesville, or just northeast of Gainesville, is actually where the National Enduro is going to be come 2 months from now. It is very not open and very not straight.
Yeah, I thought you guys took first gear out of the bikes out west. I didn't know you needed to go that slow.
Yeah. That's we've had quite a few guys come from the west, like Bobby Garrison and a couple other riders that have come and done races down here, and they were like, "Oh, now I get why Barkbusters exist, because in the west they can wear, you know, for them they're shrub guards, but in West Texas shrubs will take you off the bike."
Well, and blackjack pines in Arkansas will take you off the bike too.
Yeah, very true. So, were there a lot of trees in Tecate, or was it winding around rocks?
It's bushes.
Bushes,
like,
okay. So like mesquite trees?
Yeah, bushes, no trees, but they are very solid, and I can attest to their strength for sure.
Their fortitude?
Yes.
We get Double D in the chat room said, "Is that why you used a two-stroke, or do you normally ride a two-stroke?" I think is he maybe referring to the Tecate or to the two-stroke that you rode this past weekend?
I just got the two-stroke because it was basically just the bike that I was going to race in the GNCCs for XC2, and I just love that thing now. I just for whatever reason, it's easy to go fast on. I don't get tired, and I can ride it really aggressive. So I'm just loving that thing pretty much everywhere right now. The race this past weekend was just sand whoops for 15 miles, and you'd think a 450 would be kind of choice out there. So I'm still pumped on the 250.
That's interesting, yeah, because a lot of times you hear people rocking a 300, especially in
300,
those kind of sandy
350
woods
size,
and stuff. But when you're a good rider.
But in GNCC, you're going to have such a horsepower advantage, against those 250 four-strokes.
Over the guys on 250, yes.
You'll have almost the horsepower of the big bikes, but you'll be we expect to see you in the first turn first, just about every week, right?
Can only hope.
As if it was that easy.
Well, so there were 28 pros lined up this past weekend. That's pretty insane. Was it just kind of like a bunch of guys that showed up because it looked like the weather was amazing? Like there was just primo riding conditions.
The weather was amazing. And actually, I wasn't even planning on going all week before. On actually Friday, after I got done with work, Cody Schaefer called me and was like, "Hey, man, we're going to this race." So I was like, all right, okay, well, let's go. Let's do it. So it was a Friday night decision, and I ran the used tires from Takati. I only rode 3 times between Takati and this race, just because it's been so cold here. It's been like 0 degrees every day the past month. So I rode 3 times since Takati. I ran my Takati tires and showed up and whole shot and won that thing. So I guess that's the secret.
Yeah, don't wear yourself out training. That's for suckers. Guys like me, we need to ride more than 3 times.
You go out in that weather, you get the flu.
Yeah.
Who was it at Supercross? I think that had the flu this time.
Oh, there's a lot of guys that were talking about being sick.
Yeah.
But when they can't take their Adderall.
Drug testing in Supercross.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was funny. There's a part that I recorded with my phone and put it on the internet, probably illegally, but whatever, of Ryan Dungey on the podium, and he's calling everybody out, saying, if you think that I don't try to ride aggressively, go ahead and you guys get out here and do it and all that kinds of stuff. But if you watch, typically he plays with his hat a lot and touches the brim, and this time he didn't at all. And I was saying about how he was so focused, and somebody was like, "Uh-oh, test that guy for Adderall." So, of course, now, luckily enough, that joke will never die.
So you think he has DDA?
Yeah, exactly.
Dyslexic?
Absolutely. Well, Ian, so you've been talking about GNCC XC2. That was the plan last year. You did get you got a little injured last year, and it couldn't happen. So what does your program look like going into 2015, for the GNCCs at the XC2s?
Well, actually, my plans took a U-turn here. I got an offer to race the Brazilian Enduro Championship. So I'm actually going down there on January 20th. It's a new team. It's called Orange KTM Racing. So it's a big dealership in town Belo Horizonte in Brazil. So I'm going down there, and it's my first time first time ever to just get to race and practice and focus on that full time. So, big change this year.
Yes, for sure.
How's your Portuguese?
Yeah,
not so good.
It'll be a lot better come next month.
Yeah, even Spanish won't help you because there's Portuguese in Brazil. So
you can figure it out. Now, Ian, when you did get a chance to go race at the World Enduro Championship, the WEC, you didn't do that good. I know you had some issues over there. How closely is the Brazilian Enduro series going to be to the World Enduro, and what have you learned from your experiences racing on the world circuit that you can apply to this now in Brazil to kind of, maybe, I'm going to say quote unquote do a little bit better, because I don't have a better way to say that.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I can do a little bit better. I actually have kind of come to terms with how I did when I was over there before, because a lot of guys that I was close to, like racing, we were all kind of getting our butts kicked, and a lot of guys have come up from that group and are now doing really well in the premier classes or in the top of the junior classes. So I feel like I'm definitely faster and more prepared, fitness and technical riding than I was 3 years ago. But There's a lot I can take from it. I'm kind of an enduro guy at heart. I like just doing sprints and transfer sections and doing that. GNCCs are great, but it's not really my forte. I love enduros, so I'm excited about racing FIM style enduros. But I've learned a lot about fitness and nutrition and that sort of thing in the past few years that I didn't know when I was 20 years old over there. So I'm excited for another shot. I'll get to race the World Enduro in Brazil. They're having one this year, so I'll get another shot at all those guys over there.
That's fantastic. So I haven't traveled overseas too much, and I feel like every time that I do, I always learn something new. Like something will just come and just jump out of nowhere and catch you. And we've talked about this a couple times on the show, like when I got to go to a dance club and you walk in the front door and they say sex upstairs, dance downstairs, and I go, whoo, shit. What did I just walk into? Like, that's when you learn very quickly that the situation you're in is not the situation that you thought you were going to be in. So you're
not in Kansas anymore, Brian.
There's no tornado taking me to see any kind of witches. It got weird. So, you have spent a lot of time over there racing. You spent a lot of time around a bunch of dudes that know how to probably have a good time. Do you have any kind of interesting situational stories of a 20-year-old American, in Europe or maybe traveling the world?
I need to go to the places you go by the sounds of it. I haven't frequented that one. I went to Finland and Sweden in 2012, and I went with a buddy of mine, actually my neighbor. He's a real good trials rider. His name's Kiefer Jacobson, and he came with me just as my pit guy. But every night I was going to sleep at 9 o'clock or whatever, and he would go out and party all night. So by the end of the week, we would just walk down the streets, and he knew everybody in this little town, like just from seeing him at the bars. So by the end of the week, he got us invited to this huge house party where this just rich guy who owned a bunch of movie theaters, he gave us the keys to his it was a Mercedes. It was a sweet car, and we like ripped around town and partied at his house like all night and stayed there. In the morning, his wife like cooked us breakfast and scantily clad, and it was like wow,
bacon and eggs, or what am I getting here? This is awkward.
Like
Exactly.
you hate people like that can just do that naturally. Babe Ruth had that. Roger DeCoster used to tell stories about Joe Robert that, when he was winning the open class and Robert was winning the 250 class, and he was like that every night. He'd never practice. He'd never eat properly. He was terribly overweight, and he won all the time. And there DeCoster's just breaking his butt, training, eating, learning, practicing. He's winning too, but he's working at it.
Right.
So you hate people like that. They're just natural. That don't even have to work at it.
Well,
Keeper wasn't working at anything. He was my support guy. So he like was sleeping in the rental car most of the day while he was.
So he wasn't a rider. Okay.
But as long as your bike worked, that's the key, right?
Yeah.
As long as he did everything he was supposed to do to at least about 98%, sold.
For sure.
Okay, so. Was it January 20th then that you're taking off?
Yep.
Man, so you're going to miss King of the Motos too. We had Alan in the chat room was saying, hey man, he sounds like a really good guy that could be a rider at King of Motos, but you're going to miss that too because of already being in Brazil, right?
Yeah, I was wishing I could go to that race, but it doesn't look like I'm going to make it. I kind of the 252 stroke working so good in the extreme stuff and on the starts that I'd like to do it, but maybe next year.
Yeah. So a little person of sorts on a Facebook Messenger app was asking me if I would be interested in some form of a rally racing series in the United States. And I said, yes, absolutely, I would. I would be interested in that. I was like, it would be very cool to possibly have only 2 or 3 for me. Like I wouldn't. Honestly 2. Like, but I would if I knew that rallies were going to be happening in the States, and obviously if my dad were to be able to go with me, as long as we could do what we did in Baja again for these events, I would totally be in as long as he could do it. And then that way I could say, okay, cool, I'm going to make these kind of 2 trips my priority. But other than that, like as an enthusiast, I wouldn't be able to do any more. But how interested would you be in a series like that in the United States? And do you happen to know any more of if there could possibly be one in the works?
Man, that's all the first I've heard of it. It would be cool for sure. I think one of the cool things about rally though is that they go through really unpopulated areas. So it'd be sweet if you could do one in like Montana, Idaho area, or Nevada. I guess would be sweet. But yeah, I'd be into it for sure. But it seems kind of far out to me.
Yeah, I agree, and that's one of the things I asked when I was talking with Dave Peckham in Baja on the day after my bike blew up when I was hanging out and we had just gotten there. I asked him, I was like, why don't we have something like this in the States? Yeah. And it's logistics. It's just the fact
land.
that, how can you do that amount of riding in kind of one spot? And the problem is you can't. Like, you would be riding on so many roads and so many connectors and things like that, which isn't horrible, but at the same time, you really would like to stay away from population as much as possible so that you're not bringing 100 riders, down the highway doing whatever they're doing. Like, so I don't know, but
we did that in the Colorado 500.
Yeah.
That would be, we didn't have anything. We just followed trails that were out there.
Right.
We just rode wherever we wanted to ride. But we rode 200-300 bikes through a town at one time, through Crested Butte, through Gunnison, through others. As long as they would be transfer sections within an event, you can't break the speed limits or whatever. And in a rally, they've got you on.
They
the,
can
on
GPS
the spot.
you to make sure you're not.
They
speeding.
know you've been speeding or not and penalize you accordingly. It's just a matter of finding these little areas that may be 15, 20, or 50 miles apart, where you can have a decent test section. Then you go ride down the road to the next test section. And that can be done. I almost tried to put one of those together in Arkansas because there's some great riding areas, but it'd take the whole state to do it right. And we just don't have the land.
You need to move to Colorado and plan this, Dad. Ian's going to have an open bed when he leaves to go to Brazil.
Yeah, well, it's, you'd think in Texas you could do something like that, but
too much private land.
Yeah, everything's fences. That's the first thing I see when I get to Texas is everything's fences.
Yep.
In Arkansas, everything's like, oh, there it is, wide open. You get to Texas, and you can't go anywhere without going through a fence.
Without a shotgun pointed at you.
So this would not be a good state for that reason. But places like Colorado and the BLM land, if it's still available, Arkansas, places like that still have wilderness and it's open to the general public, it could be done, but it'd take a lot of work.
Yep, it would, especially to organize. Like, I like what you're saying about the Colorado 500. Yeah, it's like, here are all these trails in this area. Go ride those if you want. If you want C, if you want B, if you want A. But then to organize it to where everybody's kind of.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that would be nuts.
And we put 300 bikes through Crested Butte at one time, and had almost no trouble.
Well, there you go, Ian. We'll once you get back from Brazil, we'll put it in your hands. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Just don't cut your hair, because after that, if you do, you'll probably screw it up.
Can you believe my hair used to be that long?
Oh, my hair used to be that long too. What was it that you called me when I showed up and when we were in Nevada? Do you remember?
I don't remember, man.
It was a hipster.
But I am trying to get a new nickname done for Chris Bach.
Uh-oh.
I want to hashtag Spock on Chris Bach every time you post pictures of him.
Say it again.
Hashtag Spock.
For Chris Bach, you think he looks like Spock?
I don't know if he looks like it. I just think it's a sweet name for him.
All right, I'm down. Spock it is. I like it. Let's make it happen. Oh, Fred,
dead,
Ian
Jim.
in Brazil. Ian is arriving a tad before... Oh, It said somebody who's listening said that you're going to be arriving a tad before Carnival. Did you do some samba practice? Have you been practicing your samba? Is a good question, actually.
No. I've got Fred's the manager down there. He's my new boss. So
yeah, he will be there for Mardi Gras.
If I haven't been practicing samba, I don't know. I've been practicing dirt bike riding, so hopefully that's good enough. But
yeah, chicks dig scars, bro. Just take your shirt off, and they'll be like, "Ooh, buddy." I mean, they're not gonna know what you're saying anyway, and you won't know what they're saying. So,
where will you be staying when you're down there? What major city? Or will you be coming back and forth?
Horizonte.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm gonna stay down there. I'm gonna come back and forth maybe a few times throughout the season. But yeah, it's Belo Horizonte, and it's central part, but it looks sweet. I guess you can ride pretty much wherever. And he showed me the house where I'm gonna be at, and there's just like trails everywhere, just right from there. I was looking on Google Maps.
That sounds pretty epic. Oh. Sounds pretty epic.
Forget Mardi Gras. Go ride.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about Carnival.
Go ride.
But have you ever been to Mardi Gras down in New Orleans or maybe in southern part of the States?
No.
Okay, well, I was going to say if you had, you might have gotten a taste of what you would experience for Carnival down in Brazil. But get ready, dude. You're probably going to be in for one of those situations I was talking about.
Yeah, Mardi Gras Day, you'd blow a whole month of training.
I want to know exactly all the things you walk into and you go, holy shit, Brian was right. Here it is. It's just like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
All right.
Cool, man. Well, dude, come on, give us some last going aways before we sign off with you and get Ricky Brabec on. So, going to Brazil, racing the Brazilian Enduro Series with the new KTM team. How long is that going to last? And once that's over, are there any plans for you to come back and try to hit races in the States, or does that look like majority of 2015?
I've got a few races that I want to do, just bucket list races. I really want to do. We're talking about the Certos Rally this year with Rally Pan Am, and then just for my own goals, I really want to do the Australian 5-day or 4-day. Australian 4-day is in Tasmania this year. And then there's the Roof of Africa. I met a guy who lives down there when I was in Australia to do that. So that's kind of a bucket list race for me. That one's in December, though.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you just let me know if you need a guy that's good at finding situations, and I'll easily go with you. My wife might kill me, but you'll get some interesting phone calls as well while we're discussing.
Stand in line.
Yeah, that would be such a bad idea. But yeah, dude, it'll be fun. We look forward to it. I am probably not going to be able to do the Baja Rally this year. It's one of those deals where it's kind of like the bucket list thing. I love the Baja Rally. I would love to do it again. It's just that there's other little things that have kind of come up too that I'm like, I might want to do that more now that I've done this. So the little things like that. So, but if you get a chance and you're back in the States, the Baja Rally was a lot of fun. I know they're always learning, and they're going to grow a little bit more and learn a lot more. So that would be a cool event for you, and I know we've told everybody else if they get a chance.
Scott wrote it and won last year.
Kicked ass. So, it would be really cool to see you down there competing against those guys and, beating Scott. Whatever.
Sounds good, man.
All right, dude. Well, travel safe. Make sure you take cool pictures and tell me every time that you get into a situation that I was right.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Take care.
Good luck out there. Later, Ian.
Later.
So, it sounds like he was all ready to come back for some GNCC racing, and then a new opportunity arose, and he decided to take that, which is totally cool. Because I get it. I would say for sure that he's more of an enduro guy, and I wish he would had a chance to race more national enduros here in the States. I think we would get see a lot more out of him if we were to be here for that. But it's going to be cool to see him down in Brazil.
We'll see how he does.
A series that I don't know much about.
Using the international rules, which is more like our new national format anyway.
Which is like the new drug rules with FIM and WADA for Supercross. Where they let you know like 2 weeks before the series if you can or can't race. That kind of stuff?
No.
No, okay, no, other stuff.
You don't need to.
No P-test?
No looking at your watch and looking at your odometer. You just go.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be nice.
But it's a different kind of speed. It in a hare scramble, you've got to maintain your pace for all that time that you're out there for the 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever. But in the enduro, you got to go absolutely sprint.
Yeah, 110%.
For 110% for 6 or 8 miles, and then you go.
Well, it'll be interesting to learn too
for 6 or 8
if
miles.
that series is as short as, say, like the World Enduro Championships is, because those can be 5 or 6 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like sometimes the shorter ones are like crazy quick.
And a lot of motocross type grass tracks, and
yeah,
that's why they kick us so badly in the 6 days.
But they're older style grass tracks, not like you'd say like a bunch of jumps or anything like
Triumph,
that. So,
BSA.
right. But it'll be neat because this will give us a chance, because with Ian, what we'll be able to do now is we'll be able to talk with him every now and again, see how he's doing, learn a lot more about this series and see a lot more. So we'll kind of get a chance to learn more about a whole nother series from around the world. And
I want to know how he likes that 2-stroke 250 on wet grass tracks.
I thought you were going to say Brazilian women.
No, Brian.
But no, okay.
Motorcycles.
That would be fun too.
The world turns on motorcycles.
The wheels turn on the motorcycles.
Right.
Oh, okay. Right. So, our second guest for this evening is Mr. Ricky Brabec, the guy who won just about everything out west last year. How's your evening going, kind sir?
It's going great. How's yours?
Oh, man, fantastic. We just got off with Mr. Ian Blythe, and now we're on with you. And I have to say, I didn't know. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congrats on being on the cover of the AMA magazine, dude. That's awesome.
A cover boy.
Oh, not me. I've been on the inside of the magazines, but never on the cover, if you know what I mean. So where did you come from? I think is a good question for not just this show, but for a lot of people, because if you do the research and you talk to people that rode out west, they know who you are. They've seen you kind of grow up, I think, in your mid-teens as you were doing some racing and riding out there with you and your family, doing really well. But then, you kind of disappeared for a little while and then came back, and when you came back, you started kicking a lot of butt. I think it's been pretty cool to see. So kind of talk us through a little bit about where you kind of came from, and then what really started to bring you to the forefront in 2014.
Well, I did my first desert race when I was like 15 or 16 or so, and then I just stayed local doing all like the Lucerne rounds, and I graduated high school and got a job and kind of had to start doing my own thing, paying for my way and
making money.
Yeah, making money, and it's not cheap racing dirt bikes, and you don't make a whole lot racing dirt bikes either. But I was doing it as best I could, and I kind of gave up on the nationals and like the local District 37 races for a few years, and I started gaining some weight. So I kind of put my head down and started training, and I got offered to ride the Baja 1000 in 2013 with Robbie Bell and Taylor Robert and Dave Pearson. And ever since then, I kind of just put my head down and really, really started training my butt off. And last year in 2014, it really paid off for me. Yes, it did.
You came away with 3 different championships out there on the West. And I think it's a surprise to some is that you're still kind of I don't know is privateer the right word with the team that you're on, with the THR guys? Tell us a little bit about your program. I think that'd be good. I'd love to know a little bit more about that, because I don't know a lot of the specifics there.
Well, it's kind of half and half, I guess. It's a lot of privateer effort, but there's also THR Motorsports that's behind me, helping me get to the races and pay for the races.
Which is obviously always a big help. Yep.
Yeah, and then Precision Concepts, they suspension company and motor, they build bikes and prep bikes. They stand behind me and help me a lot as well. So it's basically myself and them two, and I would consider it a half privateer effort and a half somewhat professional effort. It's not like a salary kind of effort.
Right.
So
understood. And are you on one of the? You were on the KX 450 last year. I mean, is that the same? You're on the same 450, the 2015 version though for this year.
We raced 2011s. So the last 2 years I've been on a 2011. I recently just bought a 2015, like last Friday.
Nice.
So hopefully we can get that dialed in to work good across the desert. That's one reason why I read the 2011s is because there's really no better Kawasaki than the 2011 going across the deserts.
Okay. Interesting, man. And so you've got the 2015, you got the National Hare and Hound coming up, for the first round, which is one of the championships that you're going to want to try to defend. What are your major concerns, or are there any, with getting the 2015 kind of, as you say, ready for the desert?
With Baja being next week, I'm leaving Thursday, going out of town, and so I'm going straight to the Hare and Hound from Baja. So
right.
The 2015 won't be ready for the first Hare and Hound. So I'm just going to race the 2011 that I raced all year last year.
Okay.
Because, to get the 2015 dialed in, it's going to take a lot longer than just a day to get running good in the off-road stuff. So maybe for round 2, the 2015 will be out there, but for now it's the 2011.
Okay. Well, yeah. Obviously it treated you really well last year, so I don't think that that's a bad decision.
And the airport may take a little tuning. We're
trying to work around that.
Yeah. That's been really interesting. But this year they go to the triple chamber air forks, right? And the whole idea behind that third chamber that they've now put in is if you were to blow a fork seal, that you're not going to lose all your air pressure, right? The way that the chambers work now,
right? The low pressure chamber is near the seal.
The bigger problem with air forks, I'm trying to learn, is that they're too progressive. They're not linear enough. Is that for a lot of the adjustments for off road? Is that kind of what you've kind of heard? I know maybe you haven't had a chance to really test with them that much, actually.
I had a 2013 that had air forks as well, but the air forks aren't really made for the desert. They don't work good at all. They're too rigid, and they just don't work for off road. But for the 2015, I think we're going to get some 2011 forks for it.
Interesting, man. Just you see, we've seen that in Supercross
Well,
too.
if you stop and think about it, with a 3-chambered fork, you've got 3 sets of spring rates, you got 3 sets of dampening, you got to tune everything perfectly, and while it's designed to hit Supercross jumps, how well does it handle the little pebble in the road, or the pucker bush, which is what he's having to deal with? It can be done.
Right.
It's just we got to find the people, and you and I know a couple of people that can probably do it, but the people have to dedicate themselves to make those things work.
Well, it's like
we're not there yet.
A huge supporter of seat time is Alan Stillwell with Stillwell Performance.
Right.
A lot of people were talking about how much trouble they were having with the 4CS forks, and after he figured it out, and he came on the show and he told us about how much effort he had to put in to figure it out. But once he kind of figured it out, that he could set him up, and he got 5-star rating with Dirt Rider. So agreed. Right. That's kind of like there needs to be that level of effort put into.
But at this point in time, you don't have time to be Mr. Development.
Right.
You've got a series to go win, and you got to run what you brung.
Not enough time.
Right.
Yeah. And
I
then
got about a half.
Yeah. And how much working are you still doing? Are you still kind of having to do a full-time job to help support the effort that you're putting into everything?
No. I recently got some outside support helping me for this year, so that allows me to stay home and really focus on racing and staying training.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
What I found interesting was is Hoosier working with you this year?
Who's working with me this
Hoosier?
year?
Are they working with you this year?
Yeah.
The machine?
Hoosier is THR.
Yeah. So what's interesting is you have 2 suspension sponsors working with you. I just thought that was interesting. Precision does the bike, and Hoosier, I don't know if you know it or not, they make biological implants, knee replacements, so they handle the other half of the suspension.
Yeah. Once your knees go out, you'll be able to.
You'll appreciate that when you get older a little bit. But you actually have 2 suspension sponsors, one for your bike, one for your knees.
Yeah, and do you say that because you have some of their products inside of you?
Actually, mine are Biomet, unless they make Biomet.
Well, I don't know. Man, I wish we'd have known that a couple years ago. Could have gotten a deal.
Could have got a Hoosier knee replacement.
We could have had some THR in my dad. He's like, dude, check out how fast I am, bro. That would have made a whole nother, like when you were wearing like riding shirts and stuff. You'd have been like,
well, you haven't heard it, but I used the joke that I raced in the day when your suspension tuner was your orthopedic surgeon. Because we had 4 inches of travel and it didn't work very well. So you guys have wonderful equipment to ride today.
Air Forks, bro. Air Forks.
Not yet.
So, okay. Talk us through how, because I remember seeing you make a couple posts about how just absolutely crazy your season's going to be this year. So talk us through a little bit about the series that you're going to be racing in, so we can kind of clarify that for some of the people that don't really know a lot about what's going on in the West, what the schedules look like, and then kind of how you plan on tackling, logistically going through the year, because it's going to be a lot.
This year, I'm doing the same as I did last year, which was racing National Hare and Hounds, Best in the Desert, and Score. Last year, I think there was a conflict with only one race, and that was a Hare and Hound and a Best in the Desert race. Mm-hmm. And this year, there's 2 Hare and Hounds that conflict with 2 Score races. And then a Hare and Hound that conflicts with Best in Desert race. So there's 3 races that are conflicting within each other. And I think out of all those, I'm going to miss one, which will be okay because my Best in Desert teammate, Robbie Bell, he can solo the race that I'd have to miss. And that's what he had to do last year. So other than that, it's just like it's a lot of traveling, a lot of races on Saturday, and then Hare and Hound will be on Sunday. So for like the Baja 500 and the San Felipe 250, those races are Saturday, and then there's Hare and Hounds on Sundays. So I'll be racing both days and basically loading up right when we finish in Mexico and going straight to a Hare and Hound.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be intense. So are they luckily Hare and Hounds that are semi-close in the sense that you're not driving from Mexico to Idaho? Or are you going to be driving from Mexico to Idaho?
I have the second one for the 500. I have no idea where that national is at, but I know the first one is the first national is obviously it's right here in Lucerne, my hometown.
Yeah, and
from San Felipe to Lucerne, that's probably a 7-hour drive, but I don't even know.
And the second one's in Barstow. The second Hare and Hounds is in Barstow, and then the third one's
second Hare and Hounds in Barstow.
The third one's in Idaho.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah,
but that's not till March.
The second Hare and Hound, there's also a Best in Desert conflict that's in Laughlin on Saturday. So then I'll be driving from Laughlin Saturday to Barstow to race on Sunday.
Man, that's going to be an interesting schedule to keep up. If you can, and obviously what you did last year was awesome. Super, super stoked. If you can get one more championship back to back, that is awesome because your logistics are going to be crazy. You're not going to get much sleep. Your just schedule is going to be so off. It's going to be very tough. So hopefully you've got a great group of people behind you that are helping you make all these drives and that kind of stuff. And if you do, the more power to them because that takes a lot to make that kind of stuff happen.
Does the mechanic? Do you have your dedicated mechanic or is it?
No, I don't have a dedicated mechanic. Last year I kind of did with Ty Renshaw. He helped me out, but he got Taylor Robert asked him to be his mechanic for factory KTM this year, so I kind of lost on that end of the deal. But Ty's still a good friend, and I know it'll help me if I need it.
Yeah, sure.
As of right now, I don't really have a mechanic that goes on the road with me.
Well, if I was any good at being a mechanic, and I could, I'd help you out. But I'm no good, and I can't help you out. So I'm pretty much made for this, and I'm not really good at this either. So
Yeah, those are going to be a challenge as you prepare the bike, unless you have 2 bikes for the second race. Will you have 2 bikes, or will you have to prepare Saturday's bike to race Sunday?
No, we have 2 bikes.
Okay. Sweet. Well, then that'll help out a lot.
That'll help a lot, yeah.
That makes it a little bit easier.
Man. So, again, being somebody that's really started to learn a lot more about some of the racing that goes on the West about the past 2 years, it's kind of the way I understand score and Best in the Desert is it's very point to point. Like you start here and you kind of follow a route that you either pre-run or is marked, and whoever gets done fastest wins. Now that's typical at least. But then with the Hare and Hound, those actually do a little bit more of a loop, correct? Which you could still say is a A to B, but it's more A to A. But like those typically a little bit more of a loop opposed to more point to point. Is that correct?
Yeah. Best in the Desert is definitely point to point.
Okay.
And that's marked really well. Baja, there's some loops, some point to points, but Baja you really got to pre-run because, I mean, not only knowing the course, but like knowing your surroundings because it's not really marked the best. So on race day, you don't want to be like second guessing yourself where you are, where the course is. So
yeah,
pre-running is always good to know your surroundings and kind of know where the course goes. So that way you don't get lost because the markings aren't that great. Hare and Hounds, they're more of a loop race. 2 different loops, sometimes 3. Hare and Hounds are. I like Hare and Hounds. Those are fun and really family oriented.
Yeah, those do look like a hoot. I would really enjoy a chance one day, whenever that might happen. And I don't need to race it to be competitive, but just go entertain the idea of going out there and doing those. How many miles typically are Hare and Hounds? Even if it's kind of an average, are they around about 100 miles? Or are they plus or minus that?
Normal Hare and Hound, I would have to say about 80 miles.
Okay.
I think last year the longest one was 112 or something like that, 115. But I don't even think there was one Hare and Hound that we finished in under 3 hours.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's fast.
80 miles. Fast.
Well, like, was it 80 miles in just over 3 hours?
We haven't finished one under 3 hours.
Oh. Changes things. Never mind. Negate what I said.
And that earlier, they've got to maintain a speed that they can race for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Unlike the enduros.
Yeah, well, I tried to maintain miles per hour, or I guess kilometers per hour in Baja on my KTM, and I blew it up. So that was cool.
That was cool.
That was cruel.
It happens to the best of us, I guess. It's funny though, because Andy Grider blew his Honda up. What? I don't know, a handful of miles before I blew. Or I should be saying kilometers because we were in kilometers. A handful of kilometers up before I blew mine up. So he was on the road though, so he was a lot easier to get to.
Yeah. Well, you were on a road.
I was just on a dirt road. Just a dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
A Mexican highway. But so as far as the types of racing, then the logistics seem easier in the Hare and Hounds as well, because then you don't have to have your pit crew moving with you and then bringing you back, or a vehicle at the other end to bring you back at the end of the race. So the logistics seem easier in a Hare and Hound.
Yeah. The Hare and Hound, the pits are usually in one spot for both loops, rather than a Best in the Desert or a score race where your chase vehicle is actually, like, believe it or not, your chase vehicle is racing down the highway as fast as they can go so they can beat you to the next pit. So
we had a good question in the chat room from Double D again. He's on it tonight. How do you pump yourself up at the start to drive fifth gear pin through the prairies to get to the first turn or smoke, whatever they call it? And I was like, the Hound. I think that's because the Hare and the Hound, but the Hare. I'm an idiot. But still, what do you do before the start of that to be like, all right, I'm about to just like hit the go button or Kickstarter button or just kick the Kickstarter because I have a button. Weirdos with Kickstarter. Still, I don't get it. And then just like haul ass through the desert.
Well, usually before the Hare and Hounds, obviously you start on a row with like 100 people. I'm pretty calm because once that banner goes up for a minute and like you're ready to go, that minute seems like 5 minutes, and I swear your heart rate's probably peaking out at like 190 to 200, and once that flag drops, dude, your adrenaline is through the roof, and you're just going for it.
Oh, I bet. That's
like a motocross start.
Yeah,
Same
that's
thing.
like so in Texas, a lot of the cross country series are dead engine starts, or 2 of them are, and then we've got one TCCRA is a live engine start. And I go out and do a lot of practice days with TCCRA, but I don't get a chance to be gone the whole weekend and do a full race weekend and all that. But when I do, I always forget that they're a live engine start, and that is just like that's just so not normal for me. And it's just my heart, like the 190, 200, like I get like so amped up, and I'm not, physically amped up. I just like, I feel like my heart is going to jump out of my chest because I get so nervous, but it's just not normally what I do, but I can kind of relate on my little level.
Well, and the minute before your row goes at an enduro, it's the same thing, he's experiencing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess so. I may not be as fast as you guys, but I can still, be as nervous as y'all.
But then again, you don't go 5th gear pegged through the pucker bushes.
Having no
in
clue
the
which
middle
one
of
you're
the
gonna
desert.
hit that's going to send you over your handlebars.
At 100 miles an hour. I went 115 out there in Pahrump, Nevada, but I was on a dirt road. I don't know how you guys do it through the pucker bushes. That's amazing.
I think you don't hit the pucker bushes. Right? Right?
You don't hit the pucker bushes, and you don't hit the road crossings.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That shit's crazy, and y'all are nuts. And I'd like to be out there one day in your not pro class, enjoying one of them with you. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
And one of the questions that the Dirt Rider article asked you was about the popularity of the Hare and Hounds out west versus that unnamed non-AMA series back east. And you kind of mentioned things like television coverage. And can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because, your racing is just as intense. And, that's where Husqvarna started, that in motocross in this country, with the old Huskies from Sweden. What do you see as the reason that doesn't draw the television coverage and doesn't draw the spectatorship that, say, the unnamed non-AMA series back east does?
I think it's more of a manufacturer thing, because out here in the Hare and Hounds, you only really have 2 factory riders, and that's Jake Argybright and Ivan Ramirez. That's a KTM and a Husky, where like GNCC and all that, they got multiple riders, and they got like every manufacturer out there really sponsoring people and helping them out. And out in the desert, I don't think they see it like that out here.
Well, one thing, okay, so I think about it a little bit from the production standpoint. I get it. Like, I've helped out with the Racer TV guys, when they were originally starting the webcast, I was helping them out. And then I've been on a couple, and they have a lot of issues when it comes to point-to-point, because when you're doing wireless, your transmitter and your receiver have to be able to see each other, have to line of sight. And I'm thinking, well, the desert, you would have much better line of sight than you would at a GNCC, where you're dealing with all the trees and all the people and stuff like that, where if you were to, set up 2 or 3 cameras on some of the top points of some of these mountains and have it transmitting down to a station that's broadcasting in the pits.
And helicopters.
You would be, but helicopters are stupid expensive. There's nothing cheap about a helicopter. But I think you would be able to have pretty good coverage for that kind of stuff. Now, you wouldn't want... I'd change up the format if I were doing it, but I still think that if with the right people and the right equipment and the right research done, that you could find a way to do just as good of a broadcast, a live broadcast of the Hare and Hounds for the internet.
But it's interesting that so much revolved in our industry around California in the early days, where you are. I mean, every time you picked up a magazine, all it ever talked about was Barstow to Vegas and you guys Hare and Hounds out in the desert, and long before Score or any of this. When did it change? I mean, it's interesting that the transition changed from west to east at some point in the 80s, and it hasn't come back.
Yet everything is still in California.
Yeah, everything. All the manufacturers are there. The bikes come through there, and yet the focus has been more toward GNCC and less on you guys. And it used to be all on you guys.
Well, is it because of the fact that on the West Coast you seem to have more motocross, and on the East Coast you seem to have more off-road? I don't know. For some reason, I don't know if I'm making that relation for out of nowhere, but that's kind of the way it feels. And so maybe the West Coast is seen more as like where you're going to make your motocross sales, where the East Coast is seen where you're going to make more of your off-road sales.
Have you seen any of that? I mean, is that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
You just know that they don't put a lot of money into the West Coast and the off-road side.
But if we keep doing things like this, you guys are going to get real popular real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen a GNCC rider on the cover of this magazine in a while. So,
yeah,
because Scott Summers was my favorite, but he's not riding anymore. But
hold the bike.
Picking up a Honda 650. I mean, this is great for you guys. The fact that you're getting the visibility, every AMA member in the country gets it.
And so just because, and it happened this year for 2014, GNCC is now an AMA sanctioned event again. And the one of the big things that was holding them back, and we had Tim Cotter on to discuss that. One of the big things that was holding them back was the fact that you couldn't get a one-day license, and that's what AMA was like. No, because we want members. We want your members, and they were like, okay, we're out. And obviously, there was way more than just that.
Yeah, for the riders, a one-day license. Yeah.
But and once they were able to come to terms, then
what you'll see then too is better scheduling. Because part of the challenge you're running into out there is you have AMA events and non-AMA events.
Right.
And if they were all AMA events or all somebody, you wouldn't have those conflicts because you'd have one scheduling organization that would say, no, you can't have it on this weekend because they're having it. Let's try the next weekend. So it would help you out there a lot if there was, more unified sanctioning. But it isn't.
Yeah.
Yet.
One day. Let's see.
Well, obviously to get as good as you've gotten, you couldn't have just ridden in the desert. What other kinds of riding did you grow up with? Did you do a lot of motocross? Did you do some trials riding? And how did you get so fast besides in the desert?
I grew up racing BMX, so
yeah, as did most of us, it seems like.
Yeah, so my childhood thing was kind of BMX, and I rode motocross here and there, but it was mostly BMX, and that was it. And then 2 years ago, when I actually started taking racing seriously, I spent a lot of time at the motocross tracks, really learning how to ride and how to be smooth and techniques and all that.
Yeah. You learn to carry speed in the motocross world too. You learn to carry speed, and everything's relevant. When we're charging through the woods back east at 40 miles an hour when the trees are this far apart, that builds a sense of speed of going 115 when they're, a wide road. Yeah. So, it's the sense of speed. But on a motocross track, you get the ability to carry speed quickly. I know that transferred over to BMX too, because. Yep. You could, or not to your off-road bicycle.
Oh yeah, to mountain
and it translates over. So the faster you go in one helps you go fast in the other because you're used to seeing things go flying by quickly and at you quickly and anticipating, keeping your head up and looking down the trail as opposed to looking at your front wheel and smelling the flowers.
Checking out your Mylar.
Yeah. So, and it's good cross training.
Yeah.
BMX, huh? Do you ever ride anymore?
I mountain bike a lot now.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Man,
great
we
cross training.
Yeah, you should start riding KTMs, and then you can get a KTM bicycle too. They're two separate companies, but it's still fun to say.
But they're not orange.
Yeah, I know. It's a different marketing scheme, man.
Yeah, different.
And you got to think about it too. KTM bicycles in the mountain bike world, there's no ride orange like in the mountain bike side of things. So like to us, if the market that they're trying to sell KTM bicycles to is only people that own KTM motorcycles, then yes, they're totally missing the mark. But they're not. And that's where some of the problems are that we could discuss. But this is not a show about mountain bikes and KTM bicycles. So, Ricky, we really appreciate you coming on the show. It's awesome to get a chance to get to know you a little bit better. As I say, the past 2 years is when I got a chance to really start, noticing and paying a lot more attention to what goes on the West Coast. Riding in the desert baffles me, especially after I got a chance to ride down in Baja at the Baja Rally. Such a larger respect for you guys. Not that I never really had it, it's just that I didn't understand it. And now that I have some relevance to put to that speed and the terrain and what you guys ride through and go through, and trying not to blow up your bikes, it's intense. And hats off, because that's tough to do, to win one series in the desert and you pretty much win all three in the desert. That's pretty intense, dude. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And they kind of compared you coming up to Kurt Caselli. Do you have any plans in the future to try to move into rally racing the way Kurt did?
I'm just having fun right now and trying to live the dream. So whatever happens is gonna happen, and I can only hope the best, right? I'm gonna do my best and try to pull off 3 more championships this year.
Yeah,
so
that would be awesome if you could do it, man. Well, good luck out there. Have fun. Thanks again for coming on the show, and hopefully
we'll keep an eye. We'll be rooting for you.
Hopefully, we'll have you on again after you're halfway through the season and in the lead of all these crazy ass championships.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Take it easy. Have a good night.
And congratulations.
Thank you. You too.
Later. All right. So, another good one. Question. So, Jacob Argubright, obviously with some spelling errors, came to Colorado for an enduro and didn't do that well. ... Do you think that there's a West, Central, East Coast have kind of a specialty where they kind of desert, enduro, and GNCC? I would say my biggest thing is yes but no, and I have some explanation behind that is because of the fact that there are riders that adapt extremely quickly. We saw Kurt Caselli was one of those riders. He could adapt extremely quickly. Now we'll look at Caleb Russell. Caleb Russell is an extremely talented racer. Obviously, 2 back-to-back GNCC XC1 titles. 1 overall a GNCC on a 150, dirt bike. I mean, obviously the guy has talent. Now you go look at how he did at the Tennessee Knockout. Look how he did at the enduro crosses that he tried to do. And then he was actually winning the national enduro that he rode up until the very last test section, clipped the tree, crashed his brains out, and just didn't get back up quick enough. That happens. But I talked to him about the TKO and the enduro cross, and I was like, dude, I think you did awesome. You're easily in the top 10 of all this kinds of stuff. And he was so frustrated. He actually didn't even want to talk about it that much on the show when we were talking about it because he was just so disappointed in his performance. But what I told him, and what a lot of people have told him, is, dude, you're a talented racer. You know how to ride a dirt bike. You just don't practice this. Enduro cross, TKO, that kind of hard enduro stuff is extremely specialized. To be at the top tier, to be a top 5 kind of guy. And so there is starting to be a little bit of a specialty within some of the off-road series. Just like there are guys who are extremely good at Supercross, like a Josh Hill. A Josh Hill on the right team would have been it was a very good Supercross racer, but he was, top 10, top 15 for motocross. He just didn't cross over well, and vice versa. There's guys who aren't as good at Supercross that are really good at motocross. Yeah, and so there is something to that where you start to, as series start to get bigger and more people start to kind of stay in one area. I do think that you're going to see less people be able to jump ship and stuff.
Well, and you see that even in auto racing. Back with the Unsers and AJ Foyt and that generation, you could jump back and forth from an Indy car to a NASCAR to a Le Mans, and you could win all three of them. Mm-hmm. You can't do that now because the vehicles are so specialized and the racing is so specialized. Dario Franchitti had an outstanding comment. He said, the reason I had trouble in NASCAR is because I grew up with a way of driving with an open-wheel car. Mm-hmm. And you don't drive a NASCAR like you drive an open-wheel car. So rather than try to learn all over again, I went back to IndyCar. Well, it's the same kind of thing here. I mean, the motocross guy learns a way to ride. A tight Eastern Woods enduro rider or GNCC rider, they're not fifth gear pegged. They have got to literally learn how to use the trees to go fast.
Right.
To bounce off use the front wheel. We saw Lafferty do that all the time. But use the front wheel to bounce off the tree to make the turn that otherwise the handlebars won't fit through.
Right.
You don't learn that out west. That isn't how you grow up. Whereas you take that skill set and put it out there in fifth gear through the pucker bushes to the first turn in a Hare and Hounds, that's a different skill set.
Yeah.
So as, back in the early days of motorcycling, you probably could have a good generalist that could do it. Malcolm Smith, the first on any Sunday movie. He could do everything competitively. Roger DeCoster, they put him on a street bike, and he qualified fifth at one race that I saw. They stuck him on a Suzuki street bike, and he qualified fifth. And he'd never been on one before. The days of doing that, though, are over because of specialization. The bikes are different. The skill sets are different. Can somebody cross over? Yes. Is it easy?
No.
No,
yeah. It's just...
And so we may be looking at motorcycling now evolving and maturing to the point where auto racing has matured, where you can't be good at all of it because it's a different skill set.
Yeah. And then there's the guys like, we talk about the guys like Kurt, we're talking about Toby Price, and there are a lot of guys out there. Like, I honestly think you give Caleb Russell, if Caleb Russell has a desire to be a good rally racer, he's going to be a good rally racer. But there are certain people like those guys I've just mentioned that you give them 5 minutes in the new kind of parameters, and they don't go, ooh, I've never done this before, I have to learn how to do this. They immediately go, this is what I know, this is what I have to do, this is how this makes me do this. Like, from what they already know, they make that work the way it needs to work, and then they kind of start to learn the right way to do it.
But that takes some acclimation. You don't take rider with skill set B, dump him into A's environment, and have him just automatically start beating A.
Right.
But in a month, 2 months, a season.
That's like Cody Webb. Well, there was a lot of people expecting Cody Webb when he did the National Enduro in Colorado to be in the top 5, and I was kind of like, if he has a great day, I could see that happening. But he's not a sprinter, which is what the National Enduros have kind of become. That's more of they're longer sprints, but it's still go for 6, 8, 10 miles. And that's not his forte. So
hanging on an enduro cross is... Now, there was another question that your reader had. I believe there used to be an enduro out in the Buena Vista area. That would be an enduro, if you survive it, don't fall off the side of a mountain. There's a lot of desert-type terrain in the BLM land. But then you also get up into the mountains, and you have absolutely first and second gear tight single track. So if there's an enduro in Buena Vista in Colorado, like there used to be, then that would be, I think he was saying, well, how do you learn or where can you go to do both? Where would be a good neutral ground? Man, I would think of enduro in Buena Vista would do it.
From what I understand, the hills around Boise, Idaho are a lot like that. Like if you kind of get down closer to the foothills of the mountains, you get kind of a deserty kind of area, and then as you go up into the mountains, like where we did Idaho City, when we did the Idaho 100, the ISDE qualifier, super awesome trees and cool elevation and all kinds of fun stuff. Like, so it's interesting.
But he's in Colorado, and if he just goes to Rampart Range, you're just going to peg it and get run over by all the UTVs. You can go into Taylor Park. Taylor Park has, down in the flats, if you remember, that's pretty wide open stuff. But then as you get back up in the hills, especially as you go over the mountain down into Crested Butte, that's about as tight and technical as you're going to find.
So the same dude that was asking the questions has been hounding the chat room with the words Mike Brown. Mike Brown, Mike Brown. Yeah, absolutely right. Dude kicked butt on motocross, and then kind of started that transition over into off-road a little bit later after that. And literally just any time that he gets into it, he figures it out, makes it happen, learns it, and does it. He is absolutely one of the guys that can that can get into a situation, learn the new techniques, and kick butt. But you're also starting to see Mike Brown kind of, I think, at the tail end of his career. And
he was racing to keep an AMA number for a while in the outdoors. Last couple of years, he was racing to keep his AMA outdoor number.
Yeah.
Not to win.
Yeah, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, 311, not the band, Mike Brown. On the bike and in our hearts. Always. Well, cool. Well, Dad, thank you very much for coming back on the show. It's always fun. Talk dirt bikes. It's being a fan of the sport, but us also being 35, there's so much more that happened, obviously, before I became interested enough, and then my ability to remember crap as well. So I like how the fact that you can kind of come on and bring up a lot of retro stuff, things that would be way before either my memory or from my time. So that's always good information. And I think it's really interesting how you made the exact relationship in the car world to kind of what we might be seeing right now in the motorcycle world. Obviously not even just off-road, but with the supercross and motocross kind of stuff. Like, is there going to be a time where supercross and motocross, it's so different that, you're not going to wind up having, you're not going to cross over between the two. You're going to be more of a specialist. I don't see that now.
Not yet.
I don't see that now.
Off-road and supercross.
It'd be interesting.
Let's see how, some of the supercross riders do in the woods.
Yeah. Whew. Not with those air forks.
Air forks again.
Seriously.
I had air forks back in I had a 1974 TM400 Suzuki. I had air forks. Then I put the springs back in.
Yeah,
and I had air assist.
Got rid of them.
And that Can-Am, Can-Am, you're right. I learned my lesson.
Forks. Yeah.
So we run 10 psi and the springs. We have air assist.
Air assist
works great. And 30-weight motor oil to increase and decrease the dampening.
That's the way we do it here, folks. At Seat Time, just add oil to your dampening.
30-weight motor oil.
Oh yeah, exactly that too. 30-weight motor oil, so it makes it even more weird. Remember, Seat Time is presented by Fly Racing. You can find out more about Fly Racing at flyracing.com. If you didn't see on Friday, we did post that part 3 of their winter series is out. So they're talking about mid-layering. Actually, a lot of good information there if you are someone that rides in extreme cold temperatures. Obviously, being in Boise, Idaho, they're around a lot of snow. So it's very important to make sure you're layering up correctly with the right amount of stuff as a base layer, a mid layer, and then a top layer. We will later this week be getting part 4, which I believe is when they start to get into that top layer kind of stuff. Earlier on, we were learning about helmets and gloves and how you can kind of keep some of your extremities warmer in those situations. So flyracing.com, definitely go look for part 3 of their winter series. It's got a lot of really good information for those of you guys riding in the winter, trying to stay warm. Of course, Stillwell Performance. You can find out more about those guys at stillwellperformance.com. They know what they're doing when it comes to 4CS forks, obviously betas. They even do some dampening on some Fox Racing products. Obviously, Cody Webb, when he was on his beta, was still running a Fox shock in the rear. And I heard that there might be some R&D on some Fox forks floating around.
They used
somewhere.
To make forks.
I know. Well, they may be doing that again, which would be really cool to see. It's interesting, and I'm sure it's complete value, that it's all money. But I think it's very interesting that there's not a very... it's interesting how the aftermarket products are in the suspension industry for dirt bikes. I don't think we have the options we should. But again, that's not my field. That's not what I do. I don't understand. I don't know the actual financial stuff, if you will, behind all that. So,
but some of your sponsors and some of the other folks we've worked with, they do understand.
Oh yeah.
they know and they can do it. But another thing about your list for the, taking care of yourself in the cold weather, those of you guys riding carbureted bikes, don't forget to jet up.
Oh, yeah.
The jetting is a whole lot different between 90 degrees in the summer and 30 degrees in the winter. So you don't want to stick it up by running lean. So check your plug and jet up if you're going to do a lot of cold weather riding.
That was part 1 of Papa Pierce's seat time tips. Part 2 will be out next week. So you guys tune back in.
And then jet back down in the summer, or you'll be
that was
rich.
part 2. Man, this is good. We're getting a lot of content. All right.
But if you electronic fuel injection, just go ride.
Yeah, just part 3. F it. Just go ride. So keep it pinned, stillwellperformance.com. Remember, like I say, you don't have to just say, oh, yeah, Stillwell Performance, let's go spend some money. Big thing is if you have questions about your suspension, maybe some bike setup, maybe some engine tuning, things that you're thinking about doing, Alan and his group of cohorts, they know what they're talking about. They're very, very educated on all this kinds of stuff. So drop them an email, use their contact form, and ask them questions. Those are the kinds of things that you need to be doing. And of course, flex bars from Fast Company. If you're not riding with them, you are just hurting yourself because, man, it makes your arms and your hands feel so much better. You can ride so much longer, and you can then go to a GNCC where you don't have them and realize how much you love them, like me back in April at the big.
You were supposed to buy a set of those for me for Christmas for my 990.
Oh, crap.
I have to go buy them myself.
Oh, crap. Well, we know people.
No, we buy them. I'll buy them.
We know people. Well, but we know people to at least call and say, hey, let's get the process started. So while we go check out fastco.com, you guys go check out fastco.com and look at their flex bars. This has been Seat Time episode 153. Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, it was Ian Blythe on first, Ricky Brabec second. We will be back next week, and what's even better is we're going to have Jason Wygant on. So the Weege is going to come on and talk with us about 2015. There's been a lot of team swaps, a lot of new bikes for people. Well, we talked about that 2 weeks ago with Dylan Green. So if you didn't catch that, episode 152, great episode. We talked for a long time about a lot of cool stuff. But we're going to kind of take a little bit of that information and kind of pitch it a little bit more GNCC-centric. And a little more East Coast centric with Jason Wygant, who, even though he's kind of in the motocross world and supercross world, he actually enjoys off-road a lot. So he kind of sees this as a treat when he gets to talk about that. From what I understand, Jordan Bailey will be in again next week. Hopefully we can finally remember to film her doing her push-ups that she's supposed to have been doing since August.
She's a whole lot better looking than I am.
Well, we do what we can. Take what we can get. Up until then, please remember, support the people that support Seat Time. Check us out, seattime.co. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We're on the Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you don't like my face, just do the audio on iTunes and Stitcher. We'll see you next week. Remember, always enjoy a pint full of awesome. Peace.